Good morning, everyone. Today I'm doing how to tame a demon read through. I'm going to merge this in with this video I just did because I forgot to mention this. Organized stalking is used to remotely tie people to the cloud for a global internet of bodies. Remember, it's three interfaces they're using: brain to computer interface, electronic brain to brain interface, brain to cloud interface. Organized stalking is now happening or will continue to happen to everyone in America in some form. All 380 million citizens of America are or will be stalked at some point initially and continually. Intelligence agencies are using organized stalking to provoke people into brainwaves, synaptic responses, which can be remotely measured by AI supercomputers and integrated back into remote neural monitoring data. Organized stalking is used to remotely tie people to the cloud. And I'm going to merge the video in now. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Dave TI here. Today I'm going to be doing a How to Tame a Demon part 6. Somebody asked me when I was going to do this. This is a good one. This is going to break down stalking, what it's about. Talks about sensitization, a lot of good stuff in this one on how to tame a demon, which is a practical guide for a target individual, written by Robert Duncan. I have not tried Andrew's thing yet, but I am going to try it as soon as I get some glue and some speaker wire. Um, so I did this video the other day and was going to release it Sunday, and I found out they had turned my mic down when I done the video, so the whole video was recorded and there was no talking. So here, let's share this your screen, and let's go right here where we left off last time. Okay, how about fatigue? And then we're going to get into the gang stalking, organized stalking. How about fatigue? Wish there was better news, but you're in a program that can alter your metabolism too. Your government left no stone unturned while developing the capabilities of weapons. There are two known ways this can be induced. The proton drive and the Krebs cycle of the cells can be interfered with, and rhythm inside the brain that induces sleep, normally known as the delta level induction. Also, they added in energy into the brain to make it more active. Normal causes mental fatigue more quickly. There's no real practical advice to be given. Of course, the person could use caffeine or Adderall, but these have a negative impact on the target long term. Okay, psychological methods used. What is group organized stalk? Government mind control programs and intimidation techniques often use many groups of stalkers. Stalkers present themselves through a correlation of events and often convey specialized knowledge of which only the target would know. This is part of spooking the target. It's done intentionally and meant to heighten paranoia. Targets ask themselves, what well-funded organization can do this, and why are they doing it to me? The target gets confused by the time they realize they've been targeted. I know I was. I was targeted years before I found out what TI targeting was. It's usually a gradually onset. One reason is to mimic the symptoms of paranoid schizophrenics. The major goal is to induce paranoia. The target's usually first stalked by ground agents, and once paranoia gets induced, they don't need to use the techniques that much anymore. You heard what he said, and I believe this is the case in a lot of cases. The target's first usually stalked by ground agents, and then once paranoia gets induced, they don't need to use the technique that much anymore. So what they'll do is they'll freak you out, stalk you everywhere and all that, have gas stations blacklist you and all that. And then sometimes they might let up for a couple of days and you still think it's going on because the paranoia is so real. I've been there. I know. Um, this is very real what he's talking about. The major goal is to induce paranoia. The target's first stalked by ground agents, and once paranoia gets induced, they don't need to use the technique anymore. The mind will naturally ascribe all coincidental events as if they're doing it. There are several techniques used to stalk a target. Let's cover a few examples. With over 950 claimed TIs, organized stalking interviews, most of the stalkers use these techniques to put the fear into the victim. Destruction of theft of intellectual property or possessions that are personal and not often valued to a common thief. Computer went missing. Trailer door was open every day when we got home from work. Repeating a conversation that is so esoteric and of personal interest to the target by a stranger. So say you just had a long day, and just for example, just say you just got a court case took care of, and you just walked out of the courthouse and you go to McDonald's, and somebody's in there. And they make sure you hear it, and they're like, "Oh, I just got my court case took care of. I'm happy. I just came to get something to eat afterwards." Well, you know that you didn't see them in the courtroom. They just said that just to mimic you, and that's just an example. There's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on. Groups acting in a strange way to intimidate, often called street theater. I mean, I could show you plenty of examples I have on recording. There are several techniques that have been published in various counterintelligence manuals that employ a stalking form of intimidation. COINTELPRO is one of the most well-known programs. The provocateurs want the target to know they're under surveillance. It's not incompetence on their part that they are noticed. The government has no shame they're using your tax dollars against you. Some researchers speculate newer technologies of mind control allow for a new form of stalking, using commoners that are not aware they're participating in the stalking program against the target. And I believe this to be true. Now I'm working on a video about a program that reads biometrics and it's everywhere in America. And you know, anyway, it's too hard to explain, and that's why I haven't explained it yet because I'm trying to think of a way to explain it. Now let's look from a psychological perspective. Everyone's trained to believe if someone thinks people are stalking them, especially the CIA, they have a mental illness called paranoid schizophrenia. How are we taught this? Hearing another person in your head can also be diagnosed as mania stage of bipolarism. What differentiates the technology from naturally occurring mental illness? The DSM, a manual or psychiatric disorders, is of no use, and many professionals don't use it. Disabling a target is an objective. Inducing symptoms of mental illness is the game. Causing irrational behavior in public is an MK Ultra objective to discredit the target, often called gaslighting. Gaslighting occurs in many real and induced forms of hypersensitization. Some are real perspectives, and others are sensitizations of set triggers which evolve on their own. This is all quite intentional for those in the program. It's like how people are sensitized to hearing their name called in a crowded room. This can be done with any color, symbol, and numerology. Here's some practical advice to the newly indoctrinated in these programs with regards to stalking. The reason they use multiple people in groups to intimidate the targets is to induce an overall feeling that the world's against them. Once triggered, the minds of the target will assume that all bad things that happen to them are due to this organization, while most will be random bad luck events and criminal activity that happen to all people. Ask the people or person what they're talking about. Don't be afraid. Interject yourself in the conversation to find out why they're talking about and what they are. Some people might be standoffish, but if you approach them in a friendly manner, you might learn you possibly misheard what they were saying or realize they're not aware of they're being used for your program. I ran across this in the airports when I was flying everywhere. The brain basically filters information and recognizes patterns. If it becomes sensitized, the filters don't work and the recognition algorithms become too sensitive, and the TI begin to see patterns where there are none. This is why TIs must always use the scientific method to keep themselves in check. But even when false correlations are purposefully inserted into the target. For example, a TI might recognize that when a particular neighbor comes in, they get a headache. After many events like this, the TI will come to the conclusion that the neighbor is causing the headache with some kind of weapon. The correlation could be real, but conclusion may be wrong. So neighbors are involved sometimes in people's targeting, but sometimes they're not. So what they'll do is called indirection. So every time the neighbor comes home and pulls in the driveway, as soon as they come to, they start hitting you. All right, so you start thinking it's the neighbor because you get hit every time the neighbor comes home. And I'm not saying neighbors aren't involved in some people's. I'm just giving an example. Or mine was smiley faces. Even when people I know are real TIs send smiley faces, I I still freak out sometimes. I'll tell Holly, "You think this is a perp? Look at the smiley face." Because every morning I used to wake up. As soon as I would wake up, my phone would get a text with a smiley face. Hey, enjoy the last day of your life with a smiley face next to it. Or the perps will, after I get perped or something real bad, and I get messages with smiley faces. So I'm triggered with smiley faces, even when I know it's a real TI and I'm not being perped. It still bothers me. It's how sensitized I am. People, some sensitized to coughing, some sensitized to red, black, different stuff. Scratching your nose, some people are sensitized to. They also do what's called influence mapping. So, and the best way to describe this, I was talking with a TI friend one day. So influence mapping is, all right, say I want to turn you against your family. All right, your family, your mom likes drinking Coca-Cola all the time. Well, what I do is I get the perps every time they perp you to have a Coca-Cola in their hand. So it gets so bad, you start thinking your mom's involved because she drinks Coke all the time. So they got all kinds of psyops they play. All right, so another example is how many TIs get sensitized to coughing around them. One TI, for example, accused another TI of being a perp because they had a chronic cough due to smoking. Other TIs assured him that no one paid her to do it. It was a reflex. The TI said this happens to them everywhere, but most TIs don't realize is that unwitting, innocent people around them can be triggered to cough through the use of psychotronic technology. Yet another example is sensitization of color. Some TIs will see more cars of one color at a given time or people wearing ties of certain colors that represent something. Being overly aware and sensitized does not mean that the observation is wrong, just not all possibilities are prioritized. There's always a very small probability that every car on the street might be red. A TI will see these improbable events that happen to everyone, signs a message directly from the powers that be. Sensitizing a TI is easy in plain sight because the average person would just blow it off. But a TI is more aware due to their knowledge of direct energy weapons and V2K technology and microwave hearing effect. Um, you know, when I first moved in with Holly, we went through stuff. I had to work through my sensitization and see, because uh, that's really you really got to fight if you have another TI living with you because you're sensitized to stuff, they're sensitized to stuff, so it's like a boom, it's like a clash, and if you're not willing to, I had to think rationally, like man, because my mind kept telling me this is too good to be true, David. It's too good to be true. So then you find yourself looking for different perp antics and all that. I'm just glad that I had to turn the sensitization off and realize, hey, if you don't, you were gonna, you know, if you don't want to end up with nowhere to go and end up in the same position, let's try to see if it works. It might work. What you got to lose? Nothing. So I tried it and it worked. One of the most important countermeasures in the beginning stages is to try and lower the paranoia induced and for the TI to keep social ties with their family and friends who cannot understand or believe what's going on. The TI is angry and frustrated and will lash out with those who would normally want to help them. But the average person has a limited amount of patience as a condition to believe that the people who speak of such things are mentally ill with all the associated taboos of the topic. Now, I really believe that I freaked some of my family members out by telling them what was going on. Some family members are scared of this and don't want to even look into it. I know when my dad won't even listen to YouTube videos involved in it. Now my brother kind of believes me. So many TIs fall into belief this is done locally by a criminal organization like cartels, KKK, or some antisocial alignment. They fail to realize this is happening in every country all over the world to people of different walks of life. Only governments or an alien species would have such power to organize or control a technology more powerful than an atomic bomb in terms of manipulating the human race's future. The practical advice is to keep an open mind that it may be much bigger than a mafia or angry coworker who would have put you in this program. The conclusions are generally red herrings. Now, I believe that there is revenge. People are put on a list for revenge. And he says alien species, he was being sarcastic. He's saying to have technology so great they can control masses of people around the world to stalk and ruin people's reputation, blacklist them, and gaslight them and all that, to have everybody participate in it, they're saying that it couldn't be a locally run thing. However, I do think that it happens in some instances. Definitely happens. You might piss off the wrong person, and they have the locals stalk you, um, or they have locals put you on a list. You know what I'm saying? Um, but we really don't know who's behind this. We all have our theories and stuff. But this technology is very advanced, and I really think it has to be research technology. Um, government black project technology. What is media stalking? After much thought about TI's media stalking experiences, I can only come to a few logical conclusions of how it's done. First, let's start off by describing the subjective experience. People say that television shows, news agencies, internet groups, radio, and other kind of media know their thoughts and are giving feedback to them just after a thought cures, as the person talking directly to the target individual. The situation is caused by a combination of group stalking, gaslighting, and psychotronics. The TI's whole reality has been hijacked. They're looking for answers everywhere. At this point, psychotronic technology will be used to transmit a type of paranoia where random connections between things seem more relevant. All it takes is one random comment to be made by someone in the media that seems to be connected to a TI's experience. The TI will then become fixated on that media person and find conspiracy where there's only coincidence. There's a neuroscience principle that describes how deja vu works. The basic description is when the brain stores information, the timing is occasionally off, creating an error of perception of information storage and retrieval. The brain will retrieve a memory milliseconds after it was just written into the memory, given the perception that the thought occurred before. This might explain some media stalking. There are many popular examples of TIs that were media stalked in what they did. David Letterman had his. Dan Rather was beat up by two TIs. Dan Rather was beat up by two TIs. President Reagan's shooting was communicating with his TV. This can be dangerous and invoke delusion, and most likely part of a typical Manchurian candidate programmed assassins project. Don't they realize they're torturing the world's population? It will reach a breaking point. Okay, according to Pentagon documents, 1.6% of any population can be falsely imprisoned, such as with electronic weapons, without a successful revolution by the other masses becoming sympathetic to the cause. And of course, they have planned for it. Guns need to be taken from the citizens, concentration camps prepared, new weapons that suppress movements, control information flow, spread propaganda are being developed. War takes time to prepare for. Germany was eventually defeated because they took on too many fronts. The U.S. and allies are a bit more careful this time, but using the same strategies of propaganda and false flag attacks. Okay, I'm trying to pull up this thing on Dan Rather, but I don't know if I can pull it up. Okay, I'll try to find it and read it sometime because I didn't know that it was a TI that attacked Dan Rather. Okay, so Germany was different. They're getting better at manipulating the minds of masses. Those that keeping their heads in the sand, crossing their fingers to hope for the best. It is very good short-term survival strategy that wolves will attack on the fringes first, but of course, those people who do nothing will be forgotten in time due to their cowardness. No one of importance in the history of the human race went with the flow and common beliefs of time. Could our country be controlled through blackmail and mind control technologies? You're naive if you don't think this is how it works around the world. Read the torture memos and many other independent investigations. The, the majority the majority of the U.S. citizens believe that U.S. doesn't torture, which shows how out of touch they are with reality. Unfortunately, they don't even know the newer plausible deniabilities of methods of torture, like microwave stimulation of the nervous system, that leaves no physical evidence and prolonged maximum pain for no touch torture technology. We always knew the government collected all the data on Americans like they do in Russia and China. The color of the flag may change, but the systems and control remain the same. America's just more of a war machine and better at it. Do they make mistakes at classifying good human with terrorists? Yes. Do we hear about the mistakes they make? Of course not. There are no true checks and balances. We have no citizens with the NSA's PRISM and profiling algorithms, but they can be trusted in the torture, blackmail, kill machinery. What is wrong here? Democracy is just illusion for the masses. Politicians are groomed and placed in their positions. Psychotronics is just another tool used on politicians to publish their shaped views. And so anyway, this dude walked up to Dan Rather, who was a news thing, and Dan Rather identified the man who says beat him up on the street in 1986 while demanding to know, Kenneth, what is the frequency? The CBS anchorman said his assailant was William Tater, now in prison for killing the NBC stagehand outside the Today Show in 1994. Tager was convinced the media had him under surveillance and were beaming hostile messages to him. He demanded that Rather tell him the frequency being used according to the forensic who was damning Tager after the NBC shooting. So there's no doubt something was going on, and he was a TI. However, I don't claim, I don't take this. This is just what the media says happened. I'm sure it had something to do with frequencies and all that, but who knows if they're telling the truth about what really happened. And I guess we'll cover this one, and I'll end it for today. I'm gonna read a devotion at the end of this. Are my neighbors using microwave weapons on me? This cannot be disproven yet. What we do know is the agency will put neighbors in the community to spook the target. They may be testing localized weapons, but the real weapons are global and you cannot escape from them. Currently, the theory is to make the target know they are a focus of the government and to increase the fear factor. They purposely allow the target to see instruments and equipment they are bringing into their abodes to create the delusion that it is localized and not global. If one creates a correlation with pain when their neighbors arrive, the person will, of course, believe their neighbors doing it to them. In some cases, I believe there is. I just watched a documentary. Actually, if you go to my bombshell on Direct Energy Web Works, he's talking about this dude has this. He's talking about small direct energy weapons that fit in your backpack, and you put the antenna in your vest. And he's Stephen Baker is his name. So go back a few episodes on where I did a commentary on the redacted video, and he will tell you, yes, there are backpack-sized weapons. Okay, they will call the police, and the neighbor will say the target's crazy, thereby creating a track record for the target further in their journey down the rabbit hole. Now, they do that. They'll cause indirection, get you aggravated at a neighbor, and the neighbor's not doing anything, and you get mad and act, and then you're in jail. This is not to say localized microwave weapons are not real. They're such active denial system, but this just makes the game more complex, from simple to the complex worldwide. Okay, next week we'll start with how mind control is possible. And now I am going to read this. If the hate does not take us out, the loneliness might. Perpetrators will come in from all directions when we have something they want to take. If we stand rooted in God's word, pick a scripture, any scripture, and stand on it, our faith will be made manifest. The perps just might get everything we own without justice taking our side. They could publicly humiliate us to boot, but we will hang on to our soul since it's not up for grabs. Two weapons the enemy will use to keep us from our destiny are a sadness of heart and a hurt spirit. Even if we are unenthusiastic about life, we must continue to display self-respect, or they will hone in on us and come in for the kill. Jesus, I trust in your mercy. I believe that my enemies will not say they have prevailed against me. Those that trouble me will not rejoice, for I will not be moved. Psalms 13, 3-5. Amen, and God bless.